Tshiamo,
Yes,
how are you doing, my brother?
I'm doing very well.
Welcome to the TTD.
Thank you so much.
What has been happening in your life? What's going on at the moment? What is a big thing for you?
Well, recently, nothing has been happening, but what has been happening recently is that I write a lot.
Oh, okay. So there's a second book coming.
Yeah, two or three books.
Awesome, that's fantastic.
The other one is I prefer to write about everything. Usually I'm a Christian, and I probably have read the Bible a lot of times. I probably could be writing on that, but I prefer writing on everything because I love philosophy more than religion.
Okay.
So philosophy covers everything, so I write about everything. So you can expect probably a political book coming.
Okay,
yes.
That's interesting. And I know that the one that you published before is on mentorship, and we're going to talk a little bit about that later on.
Yeah.
So you're a Christian.
I am.
How many years?
I was born again in 2008 in Kingdom Embassy.
Okay.
Under the leadership of David Grace.
Okay.
Apostle
I know the man. He's in Palape.
Yeah, from Palape. I grew up in Palape.
Okay.
Went to school, primary school, secondary school, senior school in Palape. I came to Gaborone when I was actually old, 18 years old.
Okay.
To do university at the University of Botswana.
So most of your life was in Palape?
Most of my life was in Palape.
Who raised you up?
I'm the only child.
Oh, okay.
My mother passed when I was 9.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
Yeah, thank you. So my father was never there, as is the case with most fathers.
What we see,
So he wasn't there. I wouldn't say I know him. I know his name, but I don't know him. So I was raised by my grandmother, who passed in 2015. A year after I finished my university. But for the most part, I was raised under by my grandmother, raised by the government, really. We're taken care of.
Like most of us Botswana, right?
Most of us Botswana. Yeah.
Wow. And your grandmother, did you grow up with cousins, or your grandmother had other kids?
Yes, I have. My grandmother was my mom's mom.
Okay.
So she had 5 children who passed away in a space of 8 years or so.
Shame, man. Yeah.
So he was left with one son. So he had 2 sons and 3 daughters. So the other one, the son was killed in South Africa during the mining times when Botswana used to go to the mines in South Africa.
Which years?
I'm not sure about the year.
Okay.
I would say
it's a while
probably
back.
It's a while back. I think around 94.
Oh, okay.
If I'm
It was a difficult time in South Africa.
It was a difficult time. So he died. He was murdered there, and then the other ones were died from tuberculosis and some HIV/AIDS.
Okay.
So yeah.
And where are those cousins now? Like most of the cousins, you still talk to each other?
We still talk to each other. So because they lost their parents, we were living together under my grandmother. The other one was taken by his father, so there was the 4 of us, and then the other one was taken by her mom.
Yeah.
So the daughter to the one who died in South Africa.
Okay.
And then the other 2, I was living with them, and then the other one was taken by a relative when she was doing Form 3. So for the most part, I was with my grandmother because the other cousins spent a lot of time in another yard, same in Palape, just in the same one.
Okay, but Omokai?
I believe I'm a Mongwato.
Okay.
Because that's probably the tribe I respect the most. But
what do you mean you respect the most?
I believe Bangwato are sort of the real Botswana.
Oh, really? That's very controversial. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm a Mokwena in a way because my father came from Kumawara, but I hear that he has roots in Namibia as well.
Oh, okay.
So on my father's side, I'm not really sure. So I would say I'm a
Mongwato. Okay, fantastic. And so when did you find your Christian journey? How did it come about?
A Christian journey.
Or where did it start really?
It was very interesting because there was a girl that I liked at senior school. Okay. Otherwise, from junior school, I just believed in science. I believed in Charles Darwin. And
interesting.
I'm a very argumentative
I see
person.
where the philosophy is coming from.
I'm a very argumentative person. So we went to senior school, and then there was this girl. She was very short. She's married now. Congratulations to her. She's married to somebody else. So one of those days, she was going to David Gray's church. So she wrote me a letter.
Oh, okay.
Sort of.
You're both at senior school together.
School,
okay.
Yeah, we're at Lausanne.
So you lived in a time when you were writing letters.
Yes, that's time. In 2008, 2009.
Oh, okay.
Somewhere there. So she wrote me a letter. The letter was not a love letter.
Oh, okay.
Because she was just trying to preach to me.
Oh, okay.
So then I thought, okay, I didn't go to church because of what she wrote there, because I didn't believe it.
Oh,
so
okay.
I went because I liked her.
Oh,
so
okay.
Then I went to church, and then that's when it started. And then I fell in love with Christianity up until now.
That's an interesting story. But to tell you the truth, a lot of us go to church because of women. I'll tell you my story. I'll tell you my story. Well, I grew up in my parents have always been going to church, right? So around 2006, when I was finishing my Form 5 then, there was a new wave of new churches, your Christ Embassies. I went to Christ Embassy few. Then shortly after that, I went to university. So the reason I say a lot of us found women, our wives in church, or were brought to church by women, is because I met my wife through fellowship at Monash. So because I liked her, I ended up buying a book. I say the story in our other podcast. So it was her drawing me, and then I landed in a good place. So a lot of us went to church because we liked someone or something. And I think the other thing is music. Do you have a relationship with music?
I love music. I think my wife talks about that a lot. But I don't only listen to
gospel.
I listen to just a lot of other music, mostly your Afro pop, your jazz. Those.
Are you a good dancer?
I used to dance.
What happened to it?
I just outgrew it. I feel I'm at a point where I cannot be in front of people and dance.
But you do dance with your wife. Do you?
She doesn't know how to dance.
Oh, okay. Hey, she's gonna kill you for this.
She even refused to dance at our wedding, so I was dancing alone.
Is it? Yeah. Oh, that's interesting, man. So then the fire came with you until now, the Christian fire.
Yes.
Interesting. Yeah.
So back then we used to pray. I fell in love with Christianity, and then ended up not falling in love with the girl, and then just fell in love with.
You found a new journey for you. Okay. But did you date?
Did I date? My first girlfriend was when I was doing third year.
What do you mean your first girlfriend?
My first girlfriend when I started dating. I started dating when I was doing third year at university.
What was wrong with you?
Otherwise,
I don't get it.
Okay, probably there are two things to it. I think the first one was I didn't have enough confidence to approach a girl.
Oh, okay.
For the longest time. The second of it is the kind of Christianity that David Grace trained us on. Was like, we were this kind of brothers who were very passionate about church. We didn't even have time.
No, you finished the story. You didn't have time for small things.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And then, so your first real relationship, were you still at the church?
No, I wasn't at the church yet. So what happened is, at some point, Royal Assembly was sort of a friend church to BFRMs and David Grace are friends, like they were best friends. Yeah. So when we came to our own, he said, okay, fine, take care of my children.
You sort of had a lateral move.
Yes, and then we went to Royal Assembly. At some point, their friendship had a little bit of frictions, and then I ended up, because I was practically staying in Gaborone, so I just felt, okay, fine, let me just go with Royal Assembly.
Oh, okay.
And then I went with Royal Assembly, And then I met a girl in Royal Assembly called Tando. She said, no, that was the first time I tasted rejection. It was very painful.
But yeah, I'm sure it was. I'm sure it was. So, especially for the first time.
Yes, especially for the first time. And then I dated this other girl, very good girl.
Yeah.
She was called Sokomoso.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think we had a conversation recently.
Okay.
But it was just
she was your first real girlfriend.
Real girlfriend.
Oh,
we dated for about 2 years.
But you look like you don't have to put in much effort. I mean, you're tall. How tall are you?
I'm 1.85.
Yes.
The last time I checked.
Yes. So guys, your height, they trend a lot. They are, height is one of the qualifiers, apparently.
Yeah, tall, dark, and handsome.
Yeah, tall, dark, and handsome.
I think it works in social media. Yes, that's the picture that people paint. But in real life, they look at a lot of things.
Yeah, true.
They look at a lot of things.
True. And one of them is money.
Exactly.
Unfortunately or fortunately.
Unfortunately, when you don't have it.
Cool stuff.
Yeah.
So now, when did you start working? Where did you go to uni?
I went to University of Botswana.
Okay, what did you study there?
I did Bachelor of Arts, Social Sciences, and Psychology and Economics. So in psychology, then I met in third year. I remember I was doing a course, I think it's Psych 201 or 203, philosophy, where I was reading about your Socrates. That changed. I was a very shy person, couldn't speak in front of people, couldn't raise a hand.
Change your perspective.
Once after I did that course, everything changed. I became a very different person. I could stand in front of. I remember there was a time Miles Monroe came to Botswana.
Oh, he's been to Botswana.
Yeah, yes.
Which year was this?
Before he passed. I think the year before he passed.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure when. I think it was 2014, if I remember very well. So I was the one who was doing the opening prayer there in front of 600 people. But before I did that course, I wouldn't do something like that.
Oh, so it sort of gave you confidence. And church gives, a lot of guys confidence.
A lot of it.
Because you're given tasks to stand in front of people.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think it's a good thing. I personally think, I learned to speak in church.
Yeah, most of us.
It gave me a lot of training in terms of standing in front of people. Exactly. Yes, the nerves are there, but I find it easier than a lot of people.
Yeah, true.
Cool. And then, your journey continued, and then where did you meet Diamonds? Okay,
I continued, and then I finished university. When I finished university in 2014, I didn't actually graduate because there were a few outstanding courses. Yeah. I had to go back to school, but before I went to school, then I applied for a few jobs. I remember I applied for a job in Kia. And then there was this couriers who were interviewing me, and then they gave me a written assignment. So what I did is that I went into the internet, I just did a little bit of research. But they actually wanted me to go to their competitors and research about the prices.
Oh, okay.
They were very detailed.
Was it new then?
Yes, it was new. So and then I got there. I went into the internet. But for me, I failed the interview. They were very, very livid that I did that.
Really?
Yeah. So they're very livid that I didn't go because probably they did their research beforehand so that they can confirm the answers, whether I'm giving the correct answers.
Okay.
So I took the easy way out.
Yeah. And
then I was called for an interview in Blue Star. That's when I started diamond polishing. It wasn't a very good paying job, and it's still not, I think.
Yeah.
But I went there and then I started polishing diamonds. Polishing diamonds, I was trained for 6 months, and then I started polishing diamonds. And as I was polishing diamonds, I just fell in love with the job, and then I started writing that book that I published.
You started it then?
I wrote it when I was 22 years. I started it there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful book. I must say, I read it. I didn't finish because I just got it.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful book. Have you always dreamt of writing?
No. Before then, no. I think I started falling in love with writing when I read a lot, and then I felt, okay, fine. Because when you read, your thinking changes. The way you see things changes. And then I saw things, and then I saw things when I was polishing the diamond, and I compared it to myself. I compared it to a human being. I said, I can actually write a book out of this. And then I borrowed a laptop. By that time, I didn't have a laptop. Borrowed a laptop from the guy that I was staying with, and then I started typing.
Yeah.
Typing. And then that's how it started.
Apparently, that's all it takes. You just start typing.
That's all it takes.
I spoke to a lady by the name Keletso recently. She launched one book.
Yeah.
But apparently she has other books that she's writing. They're not yet there. But one thing she said is just start writing.
You are always writing. Every time. Once you write your first book, you have the confidence of writing anything. You can write. I'm actually a very opinionated person. So sometimes I just post on Facebook. But for the most part, I think there was a trend that was going on about I did not kill him. In last year, around December, where women were sharing their stories about gender-based violence and their experiences. From there, the first thing that I thought, I wanted to criticize them and just pick on a few.
So what was the trend? I tend to be backward.
The trend was I did not kill him. I did not kill him. Say the men are beating us up or they are abusing us, but we don't kill them. Why should they kill us? So that was the trend.
Yeah.
From that point, I just started writing a book, and it's almost done. But I just started writing a book. You make an observation like that, and then you sit down with yourself, and then you start writing.
Yeah.
That's it.
You have you started something I was gonna go into. You have a lot of opinions.
Yeah.
I read through your wall, and some of them are quite, I don't know, aggressive is the right word, but most of them do make sense. Yeah. But I guess now I understand where it comes from, because a philosopher thinks about not just one thing. You see things from a different perspective. Yeah. But where do you get that? Where do you get? Why do you like because and the English is always big.
Yeah.
Where do you get all of that?
Okay,
because I see it a lot on your profile.
Philosophy is you like being very different. You like being very different.
What is the intent? For people to see things in a different light.
For people to see things in a different light, and then another aspect of it is it comes from my Christianity. People need to be convicted, and sometimes you need to write in a very aggressive way so that people get offended, and actually it trends more. But most of my posts that trends are the ones that offended people, not the ones that people are happy about.
Yeah. No, true. It's true with everything, Tshiamo. Everything.
So even when I preach, I'm not the kind of preacher that says nice things. I'm not very motivational.
So
I just go all out.
You provoke a lot.
Yeah, I provoke a lot.
One of the things one of the topics that you talked a lot about was, how women dress.
Yeah.
There was a talk about, a prominent lady on how she was dressed in a recent, I think it was a walk.
Yeah.
I don't want to mention names.
Yeah.
But you know what? I wanted to ask you, what is your opinion about the way women dress?
My opinion about...
Be careful, Tshiamo.
I will be. I'll try to be.
Try to be careful, because, you must sound considerate.
So my perspective about the way women dress, I think every woman has a right to dress the way they want. But I think the context is very, very important. And the time that I make that comment is, you need to dress for the occasion.
Okay.
I mean, I can imagine you are dressed in a miniskirt, you are preaching. People are not going to listen to.
Men are not going to listen.
Exactly.
Men are going to watch.
So they are not going to listen. I remember there was a time that David Grace used to say that women cannot sit in front in his church. And he was very, very honest about it. I don't want to see your thighs when I'm trying to preach. you know. So the context, sometimes you lose the message. So the message was, she was doing a walk for gender-based violence. And then somebody argued with me and said, why are you criticizing them? Do you want her to dress in a traditional attire trying to walk? I said, no, the walking part was fine. You can dress like that. But once you stand on the church, you see people are talking about her attire, not the message that she was trying to imply.
We don't even know the message.
The message lost in the dressing. So the context is very, very important. I don't mind women putting on a miniskirt. It's fine. Sometimes we like seeing that for a moment, but context is very, very important.
And what do you mean by context? I cannot know what you mean.
Yeah.
But who determines the right context?
The environment and the culture of the place you are probably invited to determines the context.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk about a shopping mall.
Yeah.
What is the right context?
A shopping mall is very difficult to determine context because it's a lot of different things. I mean, there are shops that sell bikinis, and then there are shops that sell probably church clothes.
Yeah.
And there are just a lot of things in the mall that are going on. So the context is very, very difficult. So if you wear a miniskirt to a mall, it's still fine. You wear a miniskirt to a restaurant, it's still fine. But you cannot wear a miniskirt and stand on the altar, for example.
Okay.
And you cannot wear a miniskirt and stand kokotle. I don't think people will welcome that. Because the context here is the mindset of the people that are there and what you are trying to achieve. At the mall, you are probably just trying to, you are doing your own stuff, trying to do shopping and trying to probably impress potentials. There are potentials that like the women in miniskirts. It's fine. You can do that. But I don't think at the Khotla, for example, you can go and then wear a miniskirt at the Khotla.
Who will be angry?
The elders.
Who? Which elders? Men or women? Or both?
Men for the most part. Some women will probably not be outraged as men, but they will talk about it. And they probably will stigmatize you or probably downgrade you in terms of your dignity and say you don't have self-respect, for example.
And the women most of the time are okay with it. But
yes. Is it? I don't think so.
They wouldn't.
They wouldn't. I don't think they would be okay with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's dress. One of the things that I want to pick your brain on, or still on dress. What do you think of the nakedness on social media? I don't know if you see it. Maybe it's just my wall.
The nakedness. No, I see it. Actually, is I think Facebook is fine. It has a bit of more controls.
Oh, okay.
But when you go to Twitter, is literally pornography.
Literally, do you know? I hear this often. I hear. I'm not a Twitter person.
Yeah.
And I always hear people say, Twitter is bad. I don't know. Maybe it's the circles I follow on Twitter.
Yeah, it is a bit of both extremes. You will learn a lot of. You will get a lot of reading on Twitter. There are accounts that your Adams. There's a guy called Adams. I forget his first name. I mean, you will learn a lot on Twitter, but also there are just sites that pop up because nowadays you can just sponsor something to pop up. Even when you don't want it in your own. I mean, a pornographic picture, OnlyFans picture will just pop up in your own. And believe me, you will look, even when you are not.
Because it's there on your face.
Yeah. The nakedness on social media, I think we can't control it. I think we are in a time where we cannot control it because people have a lot of rights. And just the culture, we are losing that probably that dignity that we used. I will just call it dignity for a lack of a better word. That dignity that we used to have, or those controls that we used to have. That or a man should dress this way, or you cannot go to a khota or you need to so we are losing all that context. So it's been lost over generations, and we are living in a generation where probably people don't mind how you are dressed. actually people will want you to be naked for the most part.
But who? I'm just wondering who really wants you to be naked, and what is the benefit?
The benefit is, I think, for example, I don't know if you probably have visited some of the restaurants around Gaborone. They are transforming into clubs.
Yes.
And they're transforming into clubs, and the advertising is nakedness. For you to buy more, you probably need there needs to be a girl who is naked, almost naked, to come and bring your stuff to you. So you buy more. So you don't actually buy because you love alcohol that much. You buy because of the appeal. So it is used for advertising.
We're in trouble, Tshiamo. We're in trouble. And, I don't want to talk a lot about this topic because, like you said, people have rights.
Yeah.
But, I wonder if we as brothers and fathers have a responsibility. I'm thinking, I'm saying that because, you said we weren't really able to do anything about it. Do you think there's something we need to do, though, as brothers? If you see your sister, your younger sister or older sister,
yes,
do you think it's still worth it to talk?
It is. It is still worth it, but it's very difficult because you probably don't spend as much time with your younger sister or with your daughter as much as the time they spend on social media. Absolutely. So you are less of an influence compared to social media. Social media is more of an influence, more than you, and the reality of the matter is that even in schools, because this rise movement is a problem. Because even in school, let me say you don't probably believe in homosexuality, for example, and I believe that they need to be respected. The sexuality part, people need to be respected for their sexuality.
It's people's.
But I believe I can imagine that my son is being taught by someone who is homosexual, by a man who is homosexual. To an extent, he's being influenced by that, because as TDX once said that children learn from what they see more than what they hear.
More than what you tell them.
Yes, more than what you tell them. So what they see, they probably see it as correct because they're looking up to this person. So because we have rights to do whatever that we want, we are influencing the next generation. And it's very bad because it's very visible even in the pass rate in the schools. It's there. You can see the influence that social media is having on children.
And Tshiamo, I was wondering where these kids get money to buy in these clubs, in these restaurants. Where do they get the money? Like you are saying, someone is influencing all these young people.
Yes. Some of it is the elders who are not related to them. Because when probably some men, for example, feel that if I'm not related to a young girl who is probably underage, it's not my responsibility to teach her good behavior, or it's not my responsibility to teach her. Actually, I probably should pay them so that I can sleep with them.
So they're using them for their benefit, but they wouldn't do the same to their cousin. They wouldn't
do the same to their daughters.
They will talk to them.
Yeah.
What do you think of the culture of? I was talking about where these young people get the money.
Yeah.
What do you think of the culture? The years that you grew up, were young people drinking as much as they do?
I don't know. I would say I don't know because back then social media wasn't that much. But were young people drinking? I mean, at my age, I wasn't drinking at 17, but I have probably cousins and I've seen people, some of my relatives, young kids drinking at 17. So to an extent, where do they get this money? Some of the money they get from parents. I mean, I once went to one restaurant and then I found that a parent has done a party has booked the whole restaurant for their child who is at junior school.
Like a sweet 16 or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
And these parents are not there. So they are not monitoring those children. And these children are drinking alcohol. So sometimes it comes from parents. And for some young girls, it comes from men who wants to sleep with them.
The sponsors. What did?
The sponsors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I want us to go back to the church now.
Yeah.
Where are women found? How did you meet your wife?
How did I meet my wife? Interestingly enough, I didn't meet my wife in church. My wife was dating a friend of mine when I met her, and I was engaged to a different girl. And so after some time, both of us were heartbroken in our respective relationships.
Yeah.
And then she reached
So
out.
you were like friends, the four of you.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
But I wasn't. Oh,
okay.
So by that time, I didn't even care about what and I wasn't very interested. So one of those days he reaches out to me and tells me what my friend has done to her.
Yeah.
And then I thought to myself, I mean, I'm a guy, but I wouldn't let another guy do that to another woman. So and then I comforted her, and then we became friends, and then we started talking, and then one thing led to another, and then we ended up being in a relationship.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, no, it's fine because you spend a lot of time in church.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of arguments with people.
Yeah.
That women are not in church. What is your opinion on that? Are there women in church? No. Well, let me qualify this. Let me qualify this. Ne?
Yeah.
There are women in church.
Yeah.
And what I'm talking about is women who are marriage material.
Marriage material.
I hate the word material also. It sounds like, but you get what I'm saying. Are they there?
I get what I'm.
Are they found? Are they found in the church?
Yeah, I believe they are. Some of them, but I think that a lot of problems that men have and a lot of brothers I have with this church stuff is women in church are sort of what can I say? They are precariously dating their pastors to an extent. And
what does that mean, Tshiamo? You and your big words.
I was once in a relationship at church, and I felt like I was in a relationship with my pastor, and not the girl that I was in a relationship with.
What do you mean?
Because we will be in a relationship, and then you are trying probably to give your opinion, and then he will say, "Daddy said."
Ah, okay.
So sort of, the pastor is having an influence in your relationship, so there's no independence. Sort of. I remember one of those days I was working out of church with my girlfriend, and it was I was staying in church, inside the church building, so I was walking here to the combis, and the pastor's wife passed because she was doing she was in the praise and worship, and the pastor's wife wasn't there.
Yeah.
Was leading the praise and worship. So while I was working with her, she took her. While I was still working with her. That offended me. I'm a very, very honest person. When I'm offended, I was fine. And that pissed me off. Yeah. And then I was thinking, my goodness.
I think in her mind, she was trying to, monitor you guys. All right, where is this going? Where are you going?
So and then I was asking myself, if I get married to her, is this going to be the case still? There is a high probability that will be the case. So will I have independence in my marriage? Probably not. Yeah. Are there women in church? There are women in church, I believe, and there are women outside still. But it's a very, very difficult question to
you know why I'm asking you? I feel like a lot of relationships don't last nowadays.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to get us to a point where we can unpack why that is the case. Because I believe if you are with someone I believe in dating for marriage. That's my philosophy. And people have, other beliefs. Some people believe in tasting for marriage. Some believe in playing to find out.
Yeah.
I believe when I see someone I like, I should, start taking a journey towards getting married.
Exactly. Yeah.
So this problem of people, meeting and parting, what is really the issue? Are we why is it so difficult for people to stay together?
No, I think we have lost that. People don't believe in marriage nowadays. That's the first thing. So there's a lot of picture. There's a picture. I think I once wrote something about this. There's a certain opinion that single people hold about marriage. They are not informed. They don't know what marriage is. But there's a picture that is being painted to the younger generation that marriage is a bad thing. And sort of women in marriage are suffering, they are being abused.
They don't know if it's men who are suffering.
Especially in days where women are very independent, And then we have also the divorced generation, the divorced people like Bodina Omanage who probably influence the younger generation to say that a man should not treat you this way, or not that men should abuse women. I don't believe in that. But I think there's just a lot of narrative that is surrounding marriage that is very, very negative. And people don't believe in commitment anymore. People believe that they have a lot of options.
And there are a lot of options. There
are a lot of options.
It's too much. Knowledge, information is a lot. And I think that is spilled into our personal lives as well.
Exactly.
But what do you think of feminism? You're sort of starting to touch into it. But
feminism is I had to when I began commenting on probably feminism, I was probably a little biased because I was criticizing the movement and not people, because there are people who use the movement. Feminism is a good thing. Feminism is a good thing because it seeks equality in terms of probably the women have the same equal rights, and not necessarily what we have turned into. What women have tended to do, they have tended to eat into men hating. So they hate men through it, and then they call it feminism. That is not feminism.
Okay.
Feminism, when it
so that is what you have a problem with.
That is what I have a problem with. I have a problem with people who use it to take out their trauma on men. Where one man hate you, and now you want to turn against the whole generation of men who have never done anything to you. So that is not feminism. Feminism, the movement is okay. But I think a lot of people don't know where it comes from, why feminism was brought up, and what it wants to achieve.
I was having a conversation with my colleagues this morning, and we were just asking Hore, because feminism, as you're saying, it is to empower women, right? Because I think women have a lot of abilities.
Exactly.
They're very good at a lot of things that we are bad at. So we were talking about whether money is best with women or men. What is your opinion?
Money is best with women.
Tell me more.
And I'll say this because I think it's best with women, because what I've observed is that women know how to manage money.
Okay.
Better than men.
Okay.
And a lot of
this is generally.
This is just generally.
Okay.
And a lot of things in life, even biblically, are just about management. Can you manage it well? And I think men don't know how to manage money because men are the one who have turned relationships into a transaction without even realizing. They think they can buy women.
So it's us.
It's us.
We've created a problem for ourselves.
We have created a problem for ourselves.
Yeah.
Probably somebody says no to you, and then you want suspach. Now on suspach, or they say yes. So we are beginning this trend. We are turning relationships into a transaction. When you look at it, you do a little bit of a research. You look at the things that men spend money on, and then the things that women spend money on.
Give me examples.
I'll give you an example. A very typical example is that a lot of women are single mothers,
Okay.
for example. And then a lot of men have children that they are not staying with, that they have probably neglected. So men in this context will spend a lot of money on women instead of their children. And women will spend more of their money on their children. When you look at the car market, the car dealerships and the car market, men are the ones who spend money on the most expensive cars.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sort of
More than women.
Yeah.
When you look at the cars, the kind of cars that people buy, men don't buy family cars. They buy a lot of sports cars. So it's sort of, I buy it for me. When you see a woman, she's buying a car for her family, for the most part. So a woman, I've even observed it with my wife, a woman thinks outside of herself. Men, for the most part, thinks about themselves.
You know, the Bible says men should provide.
Yeah.
And women should support.
Yeah.
You are saying we've lost that.
We have. We have lost that. And we have lost that because of this saying that was once said by Robin Williams. He said, God has given men two things, a penis and a brain.
Okay. Two brains also.
Unfortunately, not enough blood supply to operate them at the same time. When you use the other brain, the other one is not working. In our generation, I'll tell you the truth, our generation uses the brain down there more than the brain here. So we don't provide, we buy. We don't provide, we buy.
I don't know if I agree. I don't know if I agree. You know, I don't think it's at the magnitude that you are saying, right? And I know I can't argue with you. You are a philosopher. I'll probably lose the fight. But, you know, I know women are good at certain things.
Yeah.
They are, and I absolutely agree with what you said. Like, generally, women will think for the family, and men will think, as you say, for themselves.
Yeah.
But tell me, you know what is an alpha and a beta man?
I would say I don't know for now. Yeah.
You say you don't know.
Yeah.
Okay. So, you know what is a bad boy? You know what is a bad boy, right? My understanding is that a lot of women like bad boys, but at a certain stage in their lives. So they need bad boys and alphas for excitement. They need beta men to take care of the family. You understand? Yeah. And if you look at nature itself, naturally, we, this is going to get me in trouble. Men should plant a seed.
Yeah.
They should make their own nation.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And I'm not qualifying that, you know, literally that we should go around just spreading seed.
Yeah.
Okay? My point is we have a responsibility as men to increase the workforce. Okay? And that requires us to entertain a lot of people. To bring them in. Okay? And the women have to, as the Bible says, they need to support you. Okay, in building that nation. Okay, you gave an example of Solomon in your book. Solomon the king. He had 700 wives.
Yes, and 300 concubines.
And you know, that's a man who was wise. How can a wise man think like that? And I know you said it's because he didn't have a mentor, right? You said it's because he didn't have a mentor. His father died shortly after he took over the kingdom. But I'm of the opinion that men have to try a lot of things to try and increase. We instinctively try and bring in more. And in the course of that, we bring trouble into our lives.
Yeah, no, that's very true. Whether I'll start by saying this: whether I agree with polygamy or not, I don't think. I think for Solomon, you realize he was very smart. He was so smart that he thought, at some point, that he can marry 700 wives, and probably have 300 concubines. I don't believe men need to have more women, because one woman it's a lot. It's more than enough. In a lot of ways. It's probably not more than enough in the sexual context, but more than enough in terms of the behavior of a woman and how varied her emotions are. But I believe that Solomon, when you look at the book of Ecclesiastes, now he was sort of regretting his decisions, and he was calling a lot of, at some point he was implying that getting more, just to have more, is vanity.
Yeah.
It sort of doesn't make sense.
After he went through it.
After he went through it. So he had to go through it so that you could learn that having more doesn't mean that you will be satisfied. Even if he had 4,000 wives, he still wouldn't be satisfied.
And ultimately, what's important is purpose.
It's purpose. And when you talk about purpose, now we get into marriage, and I know probably we'll be in trouble for this at home. But when you get into marriage, most people believe that you marry somebody that you are in love with.
Come on.
They believe that. And I think there's a lot of mistakes that we make in church. But the reality of the matter is, I'll give you an example of Rachel and Leah. Leah was God's choice.
But not the guy's choice.
Rachel was Jacob's choice. And for the most part, that's how life is. For the most part, you need to marry God's choice for your life to probably follow his purpose. God has his purpose, and he's not interested in how you feel in your romantic feelings, because for the most part we like things that are physically beautiful but intrinsically what can I say, bankrupt to an extent. So our choice and God's choice are very seldom in sync. They are never aligned for the most part. What we love and what God loves for us is never aligned. So when you get married to someone, you get married to purpose. You don't get married because you love them. Because when you love them, it is emotional, and emotions are very volatile. They can take you from here to there. But after some time, something else, something different has to sustain the marriage or has to sustain the relationship, and it's bigger than emotions. Because the reality of the matter, and probably something that we don't teach the younger generation, is that at some point you don't feel anything for your spouse. There are times, there are moments.
It's not always sweet.
And there are seasons.
Yeah.
Then you ask yourself, what is sustaining me at this point when you don't feel that?
Can you clarify something for me?
Yeah.
So what is the purpose of marriage? I want to make sure I get that.
The purpose of marriage, generally, I would say, is to be fruitful and multiply.
Okay. Are we talking babies?
We're talking babies.
Okay.
And just for you probably to fulfill your calling. Now, there is somebody that you are in love with. I mean, I've been in love with a lot of girls. I mean, I was in love. There are people that I was in love with. But when I sit down and think about it, they were not good for me. And if I married them, there was a girl that I was engaged to before my wife. I was in love with her. But generally, I at some point when we parted ways, I had to sit down with myself, is she good for me? And I had to come to the decision that as much as I love her, she's not. So at some point, I had to make a decision that I have to get somebody who is going to support what I want to build and what I want to achieve.
I wish you could give me an example. Because I'm trying to think, Hori.
Yeah.
Why would you be sure that this person is not built for what is coming for me. It's not built. It's not part of my purpose.
I think.
And how can you be sure that those things,
How can you be
true?
Yes.
Yeah.
How do you see it? You see it in behavior.
Okay.
And I'm going to give you an example of the probably somebody that I was in a relationship with. When I met my wife, she told me that I love you for you. I don't want anything from you.
The way you are.
I don't want anything material. The girl that I dated before, she was always asking for money all the time. Nearly, it's where you realize that somebody loves you because of what you have and what you give them.
Okay.
And once you don't have that, they won't be there.
Okay.
But what I realized about my wife is she will be there even when I don't have anything.
Okay. That's a good wife.
Yeah. She will support me even when it's not convenient for her to do so.
What makes a person like that?
I don't know if
Is that past?
If it is to an extent. Somebody who sometimes is very good for somebody to be hurt so much. There are people who learn from that, but there are people who get destroyed by that. TDX talks about two guys who were raised by a drunkard father. So one of them grew up to be a drunkard, and the other one grew up to be a very good person who doesn't like alcohol.
Both raised by a drunkard.
Raised by the same person. So pain can make a person better, but it can also damage an individual. And I'll give an example of myself. I think there are behaviors that I display in marriage, for example. I can be very angry. There was a time that I had a lot of anger when I began working. I had a lot of anger. And it was because I just came out of a relationship of somebody that I was in love with. And then the relationship ended. I was heartbroken. And I was very angry. And I was destroying everything that was before me. You know. There are things that are probably, there are some ways that I've treated my wife because of the previous relationships. But I have chosen her also. I made a good decision there because of my previous relationships. Because at every point, you either your pain makes you to make the right decision, or it makes you to make the bad decision. Yeah.
And I can absolutely agree with that. It's also the same as people can grow up within a certain place.
Yes.
And it doesn't mean if it's a bad place, they're going to be bad people.
Bad people.
And I have examples in my life. Okay, great. Now, I want us to talk about your book.
Yes, sir.
I forget the title all the time. I want to say it right. What's the title?
Polishing the diamond in every human being, the Art of Mentorship.
The Art of Mentorship.
Yeah.
I went through the book, and there's a couple of laws that you say in there, and there's a couple of, there's levels that you talked about of levels of mentorship.
Yeah.
And you chose, the one of a father and son to be the best.
Yeah.
And, I ended it there. And throughout the book, you keep referring to, the actual polishing of a diamond. That mentorship is actually getting something from this stage to a certain stage.
Yeah.
So when you talk about mentorship, where do fathers learn to mentor?
Ideally, I think as I've mentioned in the book, is ideally, if everything was perfect, we should be getting the mentorship from our fathers. So our fathers should be mentored by their fathers, and they should mentor us, and then we should mentor our children. But ideally, that's the reality of the matter is that is not the case, and that is the reason why probably now we have the spiritual fathers, and that we have the life coaches and everything. But still, that is not enough. Ideally, you should be getting mentorship from someone probably who at home, that is probably the best place, but that is not what is happening. So the reality is that is not what is happening. But you need to get mentorship from somebody who's probably is a father figure for you, or for women probably. The reason why I used father son is because I know women are going to kill me for not using mother daughter, but it's probably the same thing. Yeah, you should get mentorship from someone who you share a relationship with. I emphasize most importantly there should be a relationship. Yeah,
and I think one of the things that you say on there is that, you know, it's a continuous thing. It's not as structured as you know what we see in a workplace. It's sort of free. And you know, one of the things that, you know, I think about a lot is when you get into a relationship, or when you become a father, there's no way you learn how to be that.
You don't.
And I know mentorship is, as you say, is trying to provide for that. Okay, but a lot of things, even marriage itself, you sign the certificate before you get into it.
You learn on the job.
You learn on the job. And because of that, we make a lot of errors. We try this and that, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. So how important is it, you know, for people getting into a mentorship relationship to pick the right person? You know, we're talking about relationships now, and we're saying people pick the wrong people. You know, people pick because of what they went through, what they are looking at. But to have a successful mentorship relationship, how do you pick? And do both pick? The mentee and the mentor, who picks?
I think for the most important part is that the mentee should be the one who picks. But then again, they should get consent from the mentor. So you pick the mentor in terms of you pick the character. That's the most important thing. You don't even go to an extent of trying to pick the most educated. Because some of the most educated people are rotten to the core character-wise. So you pick the person with a good character, which is very, very rare to find in our days, because we don't have a lot of people who are open books. People have private lives. Sometimes you think a person is a good person, but they are not actually good in private. You know, you are going to realize that after some time. But you need to pick. It's a very difficult thing to do, but you need to pick somebody with a good character. I can tell you my story that I was mentored by. I grew up without a father, definitely, and probably was raised by women most of my life. But when I met David Grace, I thought he had his faults, but I think for the most part, if I look at the people that I've sat under as mentors, I've sat under David Grace, I've sat under Boahora Magapi, Prophet Boahora Magapi, and Apostle M.D. Baloi. I said all of them. Every time I look at myself and I see the way I look at this, all of them are authors, by the way. So to an extent, I picked that up. What I can write. I mean, they even told me that you have this potential, because they made you realize things that probably you don't realize about themselves. But the most common thing about them is that they had a certain character that I agreed with. Yeah.
So that's the one you picked.
That's the one I picked.
You know, Tshiamo, there's a lot is going on around, right?
Yeah.
We'll come back to the church.
Yeah.
But at work, a lot of young people are asking senior people to mentor them.
Yeah.
But most of those relationships end in vain.
Yeah.
You know.
True.
I've seen, you know, it's not only, you know, opposite sex, you know, even, you know, you get some people that you say they're mentoring someone and you literally reduce to an assistant.
Yeah.
And because you are looking for something, and I don't know if it's the desperation of, you know, getting something from this person.
Yeah.
you end up just going on and on and on. And by the time you realize that this is not a mentorship relationship, you now become a toxic head buffalo, So it's really concerning how, people take advantage of each other.
Yeah.
How can we be sure that we choose the right mentor? Because people are looking for mentorship. I don't know how many people have approached you. A lot of people have approached me. Most of the time I tell them, I can't mentor you. What are you looking for?
Yeah.
Where do you think we go wrong? And I know you said, we should choose the character. And man is fickle, as the Bible says. They change.
Yeah, no,
I can talk to you today, you are nice. You think about these guys who scam people. When they talk to you the first time, they're very nice. But then suddenly things change. How can you be sure that I'm picking the right character?
I think one of the things that I mentioned there is observation, because you need to observe somebody for some time for you to actually, even when you get into, I'll just give an example of a church, though we are going to go back there. But even if you get into a church, you don't, for the first time, which is a mistake that a lot of young people make, you get into a church because somebody is preaching good and then you say, he's my spiritual father.
Yeah.
Because he preached one good sermon. But you don't know him at all. You don't know him. You have never seen him in any weak state. You have never seen anything. He has never shared anything private with you. But because he preached a good sermon, or probably because he has followership, you say he's your mentor.
Yeah.
And in the professional space, in the corporate space, the mistake that we make is that young people are not looking for mentors. They are looking for opportunities. And they call it networking. So once you go to someone and then they see that you are looking for something, either as a woman, they are going to sleep with you if they don't have good character, or either as a guy, you are going to be reduced, as you have said, to a personal assistant. And at some point, you are going to get frustrated. And then, because we are very transactional in our approach nowadays. We don't do things for the sake of, I want to learn. So the goal of mentorship should be education, and shouldn't be, I want to benefit something from you, or I want you to give me an opportunity. I remember at work, I'll reach out to people who are at the top, probably, especially when you are new in a company, you will look for people that you say, I remember I went to one lady, and then I told them, I've written a book. By that time, I haven't published it. And I wasn't really trying to get the mentorship part. I was trying to get an opportunity. I think that's where it all goes from, where we start. What are you looking for? A lot of us don't know what we are looking for. And a lot of us, to be very honest, don't care about character. We want opportunities.
We want what we want.
We want what we can benefit. It goes for romance. It goes to the church. We want what we can get. And that's where it all goes from.
Yeah, going back to church, the one at church, it's a problematic one, because I think people follow leaders there out of fear.
Yes, true.
And for some reason, I feel like, those mentors capitalize on the fear, to make sure that you can't really think of something else. Even if you see that the relationship is not going anywhere, you stick around.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, creates bitter Christians.
Yeah, true.
Have you seen that?
Yeah, it's basically abuse. It's not physical. It's mental. They capitalize on your fears. So I remember I've been in a church. One of the reasons why I left a certain church is because of that. So I felt I got to a point where I had a problem with the fact that when I get to the pulpit, probably when I'm preaching, I should acknowledge you first. I should acknowledge you and call you daddy and show everybody.
Before you start.
I had a problem with that. I think it got to a point where that man said, I'm your Jesus on earth. And that was my last ditch. That was the breaking point. I said, I cannot go this direction because this is not probably what the Bible is teaching us. But what is happening in church is that pastors are capitalizing on the needs of the people. They are capitalizing on their plight, and on their vulnerabilities. Yes. So they know that you grew up without a father. A lot of women, for example, a lot of girls grew up without fathers. When they see this thing of calling somebody daddy, they get so desperate that they want to call somebody daddy. Sometimes you are just desperate for that. You want somebody you can call daddy, you know. And because you want somebody who can call daddy, and then they see that, they capitalize on that. And they go to the point of even misquoting scriptures sometimes.
To suit them.
To suit them.
Is it wrong?
It's wrong. And I've said it before that there's nothing wrong with spiritual fatherhood. I think it can be a very good concept of mentorship. I mean, it existed in the Jewish culture. It was there. Paul mentioned it in the Bible. He had a relationship with Timothy that was probably similar to what I described on the book. But it has gotten to a point now where you worship the person. That person is a leader of a cult. You are part of that cult.
Because you worship them.
Because you worship them. You cannot do certain things a certain way. You don't have independence of thought. You have to think like them. I mean, it got to a point where there are guys who are very good preachers, but they became very bad preachers because every time they get into the pulpit, they have to say, Daddy said this, Daddy said that. I was very different. I mean, I think I'm somebody who is not afraid to be controversial.
But I wonder, who tells people to say that? Is it always the leader in the church, or it just becomes a culture and everyone says that, and it just goes on and on? Is it really them who say that people should call them that?
I think it's both. It goes both ways. Sometimes it's the people. Sometimes the man is not at fault, or the woman is not at fault. But for the most part, it's the man. And I will explain why. For example, I was in churches that were probably connected to Bishop Oyedepo, the Nigerian guy, who the Nigerian pastor, let me not call him guy. So I was in churches. I think Kingdom Embassy, the pastor went to Winners Chapel, and Royal Assembly, the pastor went to Winners Chapel. So what was happening? There is a culture there. They call that man daddy, Papa. Actually, that's what they call him. Every pastor calls him that. So, and then there's pastors who are under Bishop Oyedepo, who trained the pastors here in Botswana. They call those men Papa. So it's sort of a lineage of some sort. It's a culture that has been circulated down to everyone, so that everyone can call somebody daddy. And it got to a point. It gets to a point where now it turns into even someone's where you say, if you don't have a father, you don't have a covering.
And you feel naked. You feel like there's no protection.
When you read the Bible, as I've read the Bible very well, I don't think you cringe at that. It's a very distasteful statement to say. It's very problematic once you say that, because if God is saying that He's my covering, and you are saying that if I don't have you in my life, I don't have cover. There was once a man who said to me that you cannot be successful. Once you leave this church, you cannot be successful. I left and I became successful. What I'm trying to say is that they use those things to threaten, because you need to keep people under control. And that's what you do. What spiritual fatherhood has turned into is that we have turned it into keeping people under control. Because we need them in church. And the reason why we need them in church, because they bring money in church. So we need to keep them under control. The only way to keep them under control.
Is that right, Tshiamo?
It's not right. It's very wrong.
What should people do about it?
I think a lot of people don't know their own Bibles. Some are stubborn. Some are stubborn in terms of they believe so much in the man. They don't believe so much in the God of the man. So they believe in the men too much that they are very stubborn. They don't want to learn. But for the most part, I think the part of it is ignorance. And another part is that this is very spiritual. The reason why I called it a cult is because it's very spiritual. Once you train someone on something, you train them on something, this is the right thing to do. Even when somebody comes and shows them the right thing to do, they won't accept it.
Can you call it brainwashing?
That is what it is. It's brainwashing. You train somebody's brain, you wash out the truth, and then you give them this truth that you only believe, or you want them to only believe.
I'm going to turn the tables, but don't you think some people need that?
In church? I don't think so. And I don't think so. And I'll explain why. I think you are risking, and I'll say this in spiritual terms, you are risking people going to hell. Because they don't need that. I believe, I've grown up to realize that Christianity is about personal choice for the most part, without any influence. If your Christianity is influenced by anything outside of God, then it's probably not real. It has to be influenced by God. It has to be spiritual, because we are talking about something spiritual. If you see anybody beside Jesus as the mediator between God and you, if you see any other link between you and God beside Jesus, then your Christianity is probably wrong.
It's a lot of it's a lot of things to ponder on, and I don't want after this people see this, to just start living. But I think also it's important for people to understand these things, because I think there's a lot of people who can't speak for themselves. They need someone to tell them something, and it's best to live on truth than not living on truth.
Not true.
Because as you said, if you live for and according to a certain person, now it changes. No longer it becomes a cult, as you said. But in the corporate world, do you see that happening where people are they're putting their everything into this person for the opportunity, and how does that end?
For the most part, it doesn't end well, because in the corporate world, what I've realized that if you do that, and then somebody more qualified will probably come and take the position that you are probably dreaming of. And for the most part, you worship that person, probably. I'll use the word worship loosely here. You worship that person, but you don't improve your qualifications. Most people who do that, who inculcate themselves under a certain individual, they follow their cult or do that, for the most part, they depend only on that. They don't depend on anything else. So they don't train themselves.
So they're not developing themselves. They're not getting ready for that thing they're looking for.
Exactly. They're not getting ready for that thing, for something they are looking for. And I'll go back to the church again. You realize most guys who worship their pastor, they become very bad pastors.
Because they're going to do it to the next person.
Yes, because also they don't know how to preach. Because the only gospel they know is what they have been taught. And sometimes the gospel is wrong. That's the only thing that they know. And it goes to the workplace also. The only thing that you know is worshipping a certain individual in the corporate world or your leader, but you are not developing yourself. You don't have a certificate. You don't have anything. God forbid somebody that you are worshipping gets removed from the position, and somebody else comes.
They're finished.
And somebody who is looking for qualifications, and you don't have them, you are going to get frustrated, and that's the reason why we have a lot of frustrated people who thinks life is not fair to them. But the reality of the matter is that life is fair. You are unfair on yourself for thinking that you can achieve anything without competency.
And I feel for people who can make those decisions for themselves,
Exactly.
because not everyone is able to really come out and say, I don't like this, I'm leaving.
Yes.
And I was going to ask you, when do you think is the right time to say the mentorship, we've achieved what we wanted to achieve? Can you always be able to tell that?
Yes, you can. And there are two things. If the mentorship, you gauge whether the mentorship is beneficial or not. If it has gotten to a point where you feel that the relationship is no longer benefiting you, then you have to end it. And then if you have gotten to a point where you say, I've outgrown, here I've grown, I appreciate everything that you have taught me, but I feel like at some point I need to take over now, mentor someone else, because there is that. And I give an example of a football. I love football. I give an example of, say, Alex Ferguson and Cristiano Ronaldo. Ronaldo got to a point where he said, I've outgrown this place. I've outgrown your mentorship. I've outgrown Manchester United. I need a new environment where probably I can mentor someone or I can succeed in a new environment.
And he left.
You can live in good terms, or you can live in bad terms. Bad terms is when you realize that this mentorship is not benefiting me at all. That is why I think people need to realize that it's okay to leave a church. It's fine. It's okay to leave a church when you feel that it's no longer benefiting you. It's okay to leave a workplace when you realize that I have outgrown this place. I need to be somewhere else. Yeah.
Tshiamo, thank you so much for sharing with us. I want to pick your brain. If you said you are called.
Yes, I am, for sure.
To what?
Okay, I'm called to be a pastor. All right. I've had a lot of people. Every time I go to a certain church, I'll go to the front. Somebody prays for me. I remember I went to Kingdom City. I went there. Another guy in the parking lot told me, "You are called." I got into the church. The pastor called me to the front and told me that I'm called. I've been to South Africa before. Somebody told me that I'm called in a church. It happens to me a lot, but I'm afraid of the call, because the call that I'm called to is not your normal one. Where probably I started church. I don't believe in spiritual fatherhood, for example.
But you said it's good. But anyway, you said it's a good.
I don't believe it in terms of the context of how it's operating.
Oh, okay,
right
currently.
But I do believe in mentorship.
Okay.
I also don't have reservations about how we preach giving. Yes, how we preach giving. I'm writing a book. It is called Doctrines or Errors, the biblical analysis of the modern day doctrine.
Okay.
So it's sort of, my calling is very different. I'm called to sort of tell people the truth as it is, even when it doesn't benefit me.
Okay.
Yes. If the Bible doesn't command you to tithe, I'm going to tell you the Bible doesn't command you to tithe. And it's okay not to tithe. And you are not going to hell because you haven't tithed. So that's the kind, God sort of called me to a place of truth. I'm afraid of the calling. People have encouraged me to start a church or something like that.
And it's not there.
But I also don't believe that I should start a church where I call it Days of Grace Ministries, for example. You know, I believe I should just be preaching the gospel. No church, nothing. Just probably holding crusades or doing your Benny Hinn kind of stuff.
Oh, okay.
Where I just hold a crusade and then just preach and then leave that place and then go to another place, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think a calling is something you should know first as a person before someone tells you?
I believe it can be both ways.
Okay.
I believe somebody can know it because sometimes you are not sure. For the most part, sometimes people can tell you are good at something, and then you don't see yourself good at that, as good as at that
As they
thing
say.
as they say you,
Yeah.
you are. But you realize that after some time what they meant by that.
Okay.
So sometimes somebody has to tell you you're called. For you to sort of, because sometimes God communicates with you and you don't listen or you don't believe it.
Yeah.
So it will take someone else to come and tell you that you are called. And then after some time you realize it.
Interesting. And would you agree that a calling is not only on the pulpit?
Yes.
Because when you started, I actually thought you were going to say that, but I hear it's a lot of things. It's not just one thing. When you say to tell the truth as it is, it's a scary thing. And I think you're already telling the truth. But there's also other things that you'll be doing. And
Yes.
do you think some people are called to be fathers? And that's it?
I believe
Like
so.
to literally to their kids, that's it?
I believe so. I believe so. I think there are people who are called to be fathers. And I think the mistake that we have made over the years in Christianity is thinking that everybody is called to start a church and start a ministry. That's why we have a lot of young men starting ministries all over the place. You know. So I think it's a lot of things, and because of that we have dimmed the light on other callings, or where you can be.
We want the hot ones, prophesy.
We want that one.
don't
I
do
remember
that.
Paul mentioning a woman, is it Eunice or something in the book of Timothy, or one of those books, where he was mentioning that she was sort of a mother figure in the church. So you can be called to be that. Yeah. And the Roman Catholic, to an extent, as much as probably I don't totally agree with how they operate, but to an extent they have those callings where somebody is just a mother, a father, for example. They don't necessarily preach, or they don't necessarily prophesy, but they are just a father, just taking care of the congregation.
I'm going to ask you a very difficult question. It'll probably not be difficult for you.
Yeah.
But I'll just try, right? What do you think is truth?
What do I think is truth? As a,
let me lay the context.
yeah.
You mentioned that you think you're called to speak the truth.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if the truth you're talking about it from the context of the Bible or the Word of God.
Yeah.
Or just, telling people the difficult truth generally.
Yeah.
But the context I'm asking from is, what is really the truth? In all of these things that we've discussed, in our discussion, God seemed to be the highest truth.
Yeah.
Okay? And, I don't want to go into science, because we can say these are leaves, but it's actually a chlorophyll that is in there, you understand?
Yeah.
I don't want to get into that. But what is really the truth? According to you? Why are we here? What is the real truth that we are here? And this is going to be your opinion. I don't want to get you in trouble. You're not saying it for everyone.
So for me, the truth will be, and I'll start here, will be the written word of God. And the reason why I say that the written word of God, because we have had a problem in the past where somebody will say, I had a revelation.
A new one.
I had a revelation, and they will say, I had a revelation so that they can, because the thing about the Bible is that you can read it and then you can even justify homosexuality using the Bible. You can justify, I don't think polygamy is a sin, but you can justify why I have to marry five wives using the Bible. But I believe that God's written word is the ultimate truth.
What do you mean God's written word? Do you mean the Bible?
I mean the Bible.
Have you heard of the spoken word?
Yes, I've heard of the spoken word.
Where does it lie?
The spoken word has to be aligned with the written word. There is no way they shouldn't be aligned. Every time you say you have you have a revelation, and it doesn't align with the Word of God or the written Word of God, then it's not truth, because the truth has to be aligned. There is the spoken word, where in the Greek they call it logos, and then there is the spoken word, the one they call rhema, which a lot of people misuse. There's misuse. Really, rhema, what it means is that you are inspired by the written word to say something. Mm-hmm. There are things that there are moments, sort of an epiphany, where you sort of have a sort of an idea or a revelation, where you are reading the Bible and then you spot something, or somebody's preaching. I don't know if you've ever listened to a very, very good preacher. He will say something. You have read the Bible, but he will interpret it in a way that
and
now you understand.
Well. Yeah.
That's the spoken word. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, our spoken word contradicts what is written, and it's not supposed to be like that. Yeah.
Tshiamo, thank you so much for sharing. Can you do you have last words? And after that, tell us about your book and where we can get it.
Okay.
Anything, whatever you want to cancel, what you said, or the last thing that you want to say.
Okay, no, I don't want to cancel anything. Once I've set something up, it's like God. Once I set something, it goes.
It goes. Yeah. You will deal with the consequences.
I'll deal with the consequences.
Yeah.
And then I've had somebody call me a serial cheat on Facebook because I said something they didn't agree with.
Oh, okay.
So usually when I say things, I expect people to disagree with me. And I believe you are going to put something out on social media or any public platform, you should expect any kind of response. And sometimes we call it cyberbullying, but it's not cyberbullying. People are just reacting the way they want to react. But I don't have a lot of words. And all I can say is that thank you for inviting me to the podcast. It means that you value what I say, you value what I write,
yeah.
and thank you so much.
Great.
Yeah.
Where can people get your book?
My book currently is on Amazon and online. You just search it with the name, and then it will pop up. But currently we don't have hard copies, because we now do bulk orders only, because it's very printing. Publishers are very expensive.
They need bulks. Yeah.
So once you print it in small numbers, then the price goes high. It's very interesting that when you print it in large numbers, the price goes down. So sort of. Yeah. So, but otherwise, the hard copies, we only do bulk orders for now, and then the soft copy, you can get it on Amazon.
Cool. Yeah. How can people contact you?
People can contact me on Facebook. It's Tshiamo Kenaape. Usually people contact me. I mean, I've had a man following me that he wants me to advise him on his body. I'm not sure I'll be able to do that.
Yeah.
But they can also. I'm also on LinkedIn, and my number is 77864470.
Okay, please say that again.
864470.
Tshiamo, thank you so much, my man. I'm grateful to have you on the podcast.
Thank you, sir.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Cheers.